The day I realized I had become my parents' landlord, I was standing alone in my kitchen. It was early morning. The house was quiet, but my heart was loud. I was holding a piece of paper in my hands. It was my bank statement. I had already looked at it 3 times, but I looked again, hoping the numbers would change. They did not. The rent payment that was supposed to come in yesterday was not there again. I leaned against the counter and closed my eyes. I did not feel angry. I did not feel shocked either. I felt tired, not the kind of tired that sleep can fix, the kind that sits deep in your chest and makes every breath feel heavy. People always say family is everything. I believe that too. I still do. But no one tells you what to do when family love slowly turns into quiet pressure, when kindness starts to feel like a debt that only you are paying. My parents live in my house. They have lived here for 3 years now. They were supposed to pay rent. They never pay on time. And every month I stand in this same kitchen holding the same paper, asking myself the same question. How did love turn into this? I did not plan to talk about this. I did not even want to admit it to myself. But stories like mine do not disappear when you stay silent. They grow heavier. So today I want to tell the truth, not to blame, not to shame, just to finally breathe. I grew up in a small home where money was always discussed in whispers. My parents worked hard, very hard. My father was a factory worker. My mother stayed home when we were young, then later cleaned houses to help with bills. We did not have much, but we had routines. Dinner at the same time every night. Shoes lined up near the door, lights off by 10. They taught me to be responsible. They taught me to pay my bills before buying anything extra. They taught me that borrowing money should always come with a promise to return it. That is why this hurts more than I can explain. I am their only daughter. I worked hard too. I studied, I saved, I skipped vacations in new clothes. When I finally bought my house, I cried in the empty living room, not loud tears, quiet ones. I called my parents first. This is your house too, I told them, and I meant it. At that time, they were struggling. Rent kept going up. Their landlord wanted to sell. They did not ask me for help. I said, come live with me, just until things feel better. We agreed on a small rent, not market rent, just enough to help with utilities and the mortgage. My father nodded. My mother squeezed my hand. We will not be a burden, she said. I believed her. The first few months were peaceful. We ate together. We watched old shows. The house felt full again. The rent came late sometimes, but I did not mind. It was family. I told myself, they raised me. This is nothing. But months turned into years, and something changed. The first time I reminded them about rent, my voice was soft. Maybe you forgot, I said. My mother looked surprised. Oh, yes, of course. We will send it tomorrow. Tomorrow came and went. The second reminder felt heavier. I waited longer. I chose my words carefully. My father sighed. We are a little short this month. I nodded. I always nodded. I told myself not to count the money, but the numbers counted themselves. Groceries went up. Electric bills rose. Repairs became my responsibility. They used the heat all day. They left lights on. They had visitors, and I paid. I started working extra hours. I stopped buying small things for myself, coffee out, new shoes, little joys. I told no one. At night, I lay in bed listening to the house breathe, every door creak, every step in the hallway. This was my house, but sometimes I felt like a guest. One evening, I opened the fridge and saw leftovers marked with my mother's handwriting, "Do not touch." I closed the fridge slowly. That was the moment something inside me shifted. Not anger, just sadness. I began to realize something painful. Love does not protect you from being taken for granted. The rent was now always late. Sometimes it did not come at all. And every time I thought about bringing it up, my chest tightened. How do you ask your parents to respect you? How do you remind the people who raised you that you are no longer a child? I did not know, so I stayed quiet, and silence, I learned, can be very expensive. The silence in the house began to feel different after that. It was no longer calm, it was careful. I noticed how my parents avoided my eyes when the end of the month came closer. I noticed how conversations stopped when I entered the room. I noticed how my own footsteps became quieter, as if I was the one who did not belong. I started waking up earlier before anyone else. Those early mornings became my only peaceful time. I would sit at the kitchen table with a cup of tea and look out the window. Sometimes it was raining. Sometimes the street was still dark. I would think about my life, how hard I worked, how proud I once felt owning this house. And then I would think about the bills. The mortgage payment never waited. The electricity company never waited. Only my parents did. I tried to remind myself of who they were, the people who packed my lunches, the people who stayed up when I was sick, but memory could not pay my bills. One afternoon, the washing machine broke. It flooded part of the laundry room. I stood there, water soaking my socks, staring at the mess. My father came in and looked around. "Looks bad," he said. That was all. I called a repair service. The cost was more than I expected. I paid it without saying a word. That night, I lay awake listening to the rain hit the roof. I realized something then. I was no longer helping. I was carrying, and no one had asked if I was strong enough to keep carrying. I finally decided I had to talk, not argue, not accuse, just talk. I planned the words carefully in my head. I practiced them while driving. I told myself to stay calm. After dinner one evening, I asked my parents to sit with me in the living room. The television stayed off. That alone made the room feel heavy. "I need to talk about the rent," I said. My mother's face tightened. My father leaned back and crossed his arms. I explained my situation slowly. The rising costs, the stress, the missed payments. I said, "I'm not asking for more. I'm asking for on time." There was a long pause. Then my mother spoke. "We are your parents," she said quietly. "Asking us like this feels cold, cold." That word sat between us like a wall. I felt my throat close. I wanted to say so many things, that I was tired, that I was scared, that I felt invisible. But I only said, "I'm trying to be fair." My father shook his head. "We never charged our parents to live with us," he said. I nodded again. I always nodded. That conversation ended without resolution, no shouting, no tears, just distance. After that night, things became harder. They stopped eating with me. They kept to their room. They paid even later than before. And something else changed. They began to act like the house was theirs. They rearranged furniture. They invited relatives without asking. They made plans that included my space but not my voice. I felt like a stranger in my own home. The breaking point came quietly. It was the end of the month again. I already knew the rent was not coming. I opened my email and saw a message from the bank, a warning about my account balance. My hand started shaking. I went into the living room where my parents were watching television. The sound was loud. LA. Otter filled the room. I stood there for a moment before speaking. "Did you send the rent?" I asked. My mother did not look away from the screen. Next week, she said, something inside me finally gave way. I did not raise my voice. I did not cry. I said very softly, "I cannot do this anymore." The television was turned off. They looked at me then, really looked. I told them the truth, all of it. How stressed I was, how I was falling behind, how I felt alone in my own house. My mother's eyes filled with tears. My father's face hardened. "So what are you saying?" he asked. The room felt very small. I took a deep breath. "I am saying things have to change," I said. "Either the rent comes on time or we need another plan." The silence that followed was heavy and final. That night, I slept with my door locked for the first time since they moved in. And I knew no matter what happened next, life would never be the same. That night, sleep did not come easily. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the house settle. Every small sound felt louder than usual. A door closing, a footstep in the hallway, the hum of the refrigerator. I kept thinking about the words I had said. I cannot do this anymore. They sounded strong when I said them, but now, alone in the dark, they felt fragile. I wondered if I had gone too far. I wondered if I had waited too long. Most of all, I wondered why it had taken me years to say something that was slowly breaking me. The next few days were quiet, not peaceful quiet, careful quiet. My parents avoided me. I avoided them too. We passed each other in hallways with polite nods, short greetings, no real conversations. The house felt divided, even though the walls had not moved. I noticed small changes. My mother cooked only for herself and my father. My father stopped using the living room when I was home. Guilty. Guilt has a way of sneaking into your chest when you finally stand up for yourself. I kept asking myself, am I a bad daughter? I replayed my childhood in my mind, their sacrifices, their struggles, but then I replayed my present. The stress, the bills, the quiet loneliness, both were true, and that was the hardest part. One afternoon, about a week later, my mother knocked on my door. She stood there holding a small envelope. Her eyes looked tired. We need to talk, she said. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I had once cried over my bank statement. She placed the envelope between us. Inside was some cash. It's not all of it, she said softly, but it's what we have right now. I nodded. I thanked her. Then she surprised me. We didn't realize how much this was hurting you, she said. Her voice shook. I think we stopped seeing you as an adult. That sentence landed gently but deeply. She continued, you are still our child in our minds. We forgot that this is your life now. I felt tears rise, but I did not let them fall. My father joined us a few minutes later. He sat quietly for a long time. Then he said, we should have done better. Those words did not erase the past, but they softened it. We talked for a long time that day, slowly, carefully. We talked about money, about expectations, about boundaries. That word felt strange on my tongue, boundaries. I explained that helping did not mean sacrificing myself, that love should not leave one person empty. They listened, really listened. In the end, we made a decision together. They would move out within 3 months, not because I did not love them, but because our relationship needed space to heal. I helped them look for a small apartment they could afford. They agreed to a strict budget. This time the plan was clear, written down, honest, the last mon. They lived with me felt different, still emotional, but lighter. We shared meals again. We talked. We laughed softly, the way you do after surviving something hard together. On moving day, my mother hugged me for a long time. My father held my shoulders and looked me in the eyes. You did the right thing, he said. I did not answer, I just nodded. When the door closed behind them, the house was quiet again, but this time the quiet felt peaceful. I walked through each room slowly, the living room, the kitchen, the hallway. My house felt like mine again. That night I slept deeply for the first time in months. Now when I look back, I do not feel anger. I feel understanding. I learned that love without limits can slowly turn into pain. I learned that helping family does not mean ignoring your own needs. Most of all, I learned that speaking up is not disrespect. It is honesty. My parents and I are closer now than we were before, not because everything was easy, but because we finally faced the truth. If you're listening to this and carrying something heavy for the sake of family, I want you to know this. You're allowed to protect your peace. You're allowed to set boundaries with love. And you are allowed to build a life that does not leave you exhausted. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is speak softly and stand firm. And sometimes that is how healing begins. Sometimes we grow up believing that love means sacrifice without limits. That if we give enough, stay quiet enough, endure long enough, things will somehow work out. But real love is not meant to drain you. It's not meant to leave you tired, anxious, or invisible. Family matters deeply, but so do you. You can honor your parents and still honor your own life. You can be kind and still be clear. You can help without losing yourself in the process. Setting boundaries does not make you ungrateful. It makes relationships honest. And honesty is what allows love to last. If you are carrying a weight that no one sees, know this: you are allowed to put it down. You're allowed to choose peace. You're allowed to build a life where love feels safe, not heavy. Sometimes the strongest decision is not walking away, but standing still and saying softly and bravely, "This matters too."